Hi, Bev. This is a group reflection and final assignment and submission for our ORCOMS class. The structure will be a recorded video conference between Darlene, Kasia, and myself. And we are going to roundtable discuss 3 points each. And the roundtable points will be interacting meaningfully and authentically with multiple formats and how we felt we did that, demonstrating capacity for self-assessment and self-awareness and how we felt we did that, and then demonstrating sensitivity and awareness and appreciation for human diversity and how we felt we did that. Kasia, how are you?
Yeah, Alex, could you just read the first point again? Make sure
Absolutely.
I've got that.
Interacting meaningfully and authentically with multiple formats. So face-to-face, online, small groups, organizational, and public.
Okay, so we were just saying that we kind of felt like, wow, it's been really a long time since we have, seen each other. It's only been less than a week or so, but it has felt like a while because we did spend a lot of time intensely together. So prior to coming to residence, we did a lot of our lunch times together chatting. And I felt like that really set us up well for an authentic meet and greet once we got to campus. It felt like we kind of already knew each other. So we were able to hit, go running from the get-go because we kind of already knew each other. So that was great. And then just bringing each other, face to face added another level of comfort and dimension. I think that we were able to interact meaningfully throughout the residency in different capacities, whether it was sharing our dinner together or doing some intense work in a library. We kind of were able to ebb and flow through different settings and different levels of formality. Sometimes it was all work, sometimes it was all, like more of a restorative practice, walking through the gardens. I think that I really enjoyed that sort of upfront online interaction that allowed us to feel connected right off the bat when we got to campus. And that's something that I think I didn't quite feel with the rest of the team. It took longer to warm up to them because I didn't know them already. But despite just meeting you guys online, I felt like I knew you already and we could really get running with the ORCOM challenge.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that.
So maybe I'll pass it off to Darlene then.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I agree. I felt like we were really lucky that right off the bat, we all wanted to meet in person, like pretty much daily. We'd meet like 2 or 3 times a day. And I think that as a team that needed to form really fast with really tight deadlines, that we were really lucky to have that desire to meet together regularly. I think that through that we were able to build a level of, a bond that was able to get us through a lot of challenging communications and communication that was quite varied, like Kasia mentioned. We definitely talked on a personal level. We talked on a more formal level, and we actually had to get tasks done. And I feel that because we had the same level of commitment to just being together and communicating, and even just being open to discussing personal things with each other to form that foundation that really helped us to work well together in the end.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true. I would concur. So really that bonding is what I would say to the learning and self-awareness. I really enjoyed the comfort pre-res of actually being able to talk, both process and emotionally. I think even then we were forming and storming and norming, but behaviorally. So I like that, and I like your reference to that earlier, Darlene. I think that's really, that forming and storming, for me, the storming I think is the piece that I'll hold on to, because I think it's the piece that we resolved. So I think about it when I think about it in terms of learning to live together and learning to be self. I think really in catchphrases, as I often do, because I try to keep it simple. And I think the three things for me, the big ones are the yes and. I think, we did a lot of storming when we were in the heart and in the crux of our assignment or our presentation, where it took us a while, I think, to get to yes and, but we did it. And I don't know that we would have been able to do it and come out as healthily as a group and a team if we hadn't invested that time where at the end of the days we would sit and have a cup of tea and we would just blurt out what we felt, and we made that environment comfortable for each other. And I think that shows on all three of our parts, great self-awareness and also great trust, and I enjoyed that. The other two catchphrases for me are that it happens in the white space. Much as I think we were great as a team, I think when we gave ourselves some space to go away and reflect, we were able to come back together and actually think about how the yes and was possible. And I enjoyed that. Sometimes the person with the not loudest voice, Kasia, had all these great ideas, and you showed them. In my mind, I watched you show them with body language. I watched you show your leadership in the lunchtimes in the park, even just sometimes getting up and walking away, or sometimes by writing it down and repeating it so that while we were storming, you could already see the idea. And I loved that leadership. So I enjoyed that. So it happens in the white space was contextualized in that way for me, but also at the times when we were just sleeping in our rooms and in the morning we had better ideas. I guess the final one for me, the kind of final catchphrase that I have is Holly's, or I guess Walt Whitman's, I am large, I contain magnitudes. And that we all are that way. And that creating some space to hear that and to think about that, and the investment we put into each other through pre-res, and I hope we'll continue post-res, but definitely during, has helped me value that about myself, but also learn to value that about the two of you. I feel like I know some of your magnitudes, and I'm glad for that. That's what I got.
Awesome. I may have been Googling Walt Whitman at work today. So.
Oh, awesome.
A little shout out to Holly in this assignment here.
Yeah, for sure.
You want to remind me what the second point is?
The second point was demonstrating capacity for self-assessment and self-awareness, and kind of feel like I almost feel like certainly for me, I blurred into that one a little bit. But yeah, demonstrate capacity for self-assessment, self-awareness in relationship to strength, limitations, and professional goals.
Yeah, I think some of the experience for me, what it did is just kind of amplified things I already knew about myself. As well, when you're kind of taken away from your norm, some of the things that you do regularly become even more important to you, or become more vital for you to kind of get up each day and perform your best. So I already know that I'm a person that like you said, like late at night, I'm going to get tired and I'm going to get quiet at that point, right? And so sometimes that time is not like the best for me to be working with a group, and I already knew that about myself. But in this sort of intense atmosphere, those little things were amplified. But also I think that I learned to kind of not look at them as like a negative or something that necessarily like needs to be improved upon, but just something that you can accept as part of you and just a way that you do in fact work. And therefore using that to position yourself for success, whether it was in the residency or whether it was or whether you take that home with you and you realize how you're going to apply that in your work place. So for like one of the things that you guys knew about me right off the bat was that like, man, I gotta go for like a little bit of a walk or something active in order for me to like feel like I can contribute meaningfully. But it was often on those walks or runs or whatever I did that I'd get some ideas that I felt like could contribute to the group and pull us forward. And so it taught me a little bit about valuing that a bit more, and not feeling guilty for that restorative practice or that rest time. And I even think that at one point Bev said to us, okay, now you need to go and just eat and take a break. Like, no, don't meet now. Go eat and take a break. And there's part of me that is still getting used to that, allowing that space for myself. But in fact, that helped us move forward much more efficiently when we did integrate those times of rest. So that's something that I think that I've not only learned about myself, but it's kind of amplified.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there was definitely some things that I also already knew about myself going into this that I need to improve on, and I definitely saw those things come up. I remember saying to you guys when this first started, when I was describing myself, that I can be kind of a bulldozer and that I can really be forceful about my ideas. So definitely also the yes and aspect of things is something I need to work on, and even identifying when it's not a yes and, where I'm like, no, this doesn't actually line up with what I'm saying or thinking. How to still make that not a shutdown, to express it in a way that doesn't make the person feel like I'm just rejecting their idea. So I think that's definitely something that I want to further explore. And then I think one thing I was kind of surprised at was I was finding it difficult to explain some concepts, and I think I came back to it a number of times where I was just trying to make it clear that that isn't what I had meant, or that I was trying to explain a certain idea to you guys, and it wasn't hitting, it wasn't getting through. And usually I'm really pretty good at explaining my ideas and stuff. So that was definitely something new to me, and it made me think, how often am I actually communicating what I mean effectively? Maybe in the past I think I'm being an effective communicator, but maybe I'm not. So I definitely realized that I need to be better at asking more questions, checking in, trying different. I know one thing that Alex really taught me was to draw what I'm thinking rather than just saying. So that's one method I'm definitely going to use in the future to try to illustrate what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's definitely those are two of my takeaways. Making sure that my communication is clear and being positive in collaboration.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I think, many of the themes that you're both highlighting, I think I would concur. I would, as I was listening to you, Cash, I think that, knowing myself and giving myself space where I need it is an important one. And Darlene, yours also, the idea of when you're communicating, actually pausing. And for me, it was kind of, when I reflected on it, it was kind of, I found it almost humorous that our suggestion to the WID was that they should share, listen, think, and change. And I thought, oh, really, that listening piece is probably where I need to focus too. And so I thought that was almost humorous, but I am trying to move past the laughing of it and actually think about that piece. I sometimes, I think I come to a conversation and I feel like I have to say my piece, and I'm thinking about the talking that I'm going to do rather than giving myself time to actually listen to the talking that others are doing, and realizing that in that listening, I should pause, because how could I possibly know the next thing that I'm going to say? Because the whole world is changing as they speak. And so it's interesting to me.
Yeah, that was reflective of the very first day, right, where we held that imaginary item and we weren't supposed to think about what imaginary item was coming to us.
Yeah.
But in fact, we had already pre-planned our imaginary item, taking all the fun and joy out of that activity by being nervous about what to say next, right?
Yeah. It's I think a tricky one to implement, but would be very powerful one to be able to implement. So I'm going to work on that.
Nice.
Hey, so Kasha, the next one is the next one and final one is learning to live together. So it's around demonstrating sensitivity, awareness, and appreciation for human diversity and interdependence. It's yeah.
Yeah, so this one's pretty interesting because I feel like we all had skill sets that we brought to the challenge, that benefited the WID more than we would have individually. So maybe it would have been easier to end up like writing a paper by yourself or whatnot, but the quality of the content wouldn't have been as robust if there wasn't, three perspectives behind it. So it's just like it shows an example of the value of coming together from diverse backgrounds and diverse mindsets. As we all know, we kind of identified that we're all a different people, process, and there's one more. I
Performance.
can't think of it. Project performance, yeah. And so we're all one of those. So that really actually was great for the WID. And then at times great for us, and then times during that storming, like maybe not the greatest for us, right? I think one of the things that I really took away from it was that I can tend to really think about conflict as a negative thing, but the process of going through that storming and what I'd say is potentially called conflict actually helped us out in the end, helped us to get a better project for the WID, and also helped us form our group bond better. So just a takeaway from that was for me to maybe not necessarily come at conflict from a negative lens, maybe embrace it a little bit more.
That's good.
Yeah, what I would add to that is when I was thinking about the people, performance, and process, we talked about those things as we were going through. We were being pretty upfront about how we saw each other, asking each other questions and all of that. And, I can remember Kasia telling me some things about herself and Alex telling me some things about herself. And what I realized is that I wasn't always applying what I was hearing to what was happening in the situation. So I think what I realized is I need to be more reflective about what's going on at the time and thinking about why maybe it's going on. So I remember Kasia being really good at keeping us on task with getting things done, because she cares about performance. And, while those things were happening, I think I could have been more reflective on that and realizing this is, one of the strengths of who she is and things like that. So, yeah, I think that one thing that I really took away from it was it's important to put all the pieces together, to think about what you know about these people and what you know about yourself while it's happening and applying it rather than being reactive.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's really powerful. I've been trying to think about how post-residency builds on some of the things that happened during residency. And so I'm finding that I'm trying to engage in Moodle to try and keep those connections and conversations. And so I love that idea. I'm thinking about Kasia's examples of how we can support each other, and that conflict isn't necessarily a bad thing. Your ideas are looking at things differently actually are the basis for a yes and. And so I'm thinking about just an engagement I had with the other Alex the other day. And I've got her in proximity, right? She's just 2 minutes across the campus from me. So maybe she's an obvious reason why, but I added some stuff to her research conversation. And I feel like if I do little examples of that, maybe I can form habits to try and get to yes and. So I'm going to try and make them little things, because otherwise I think my head's going to explode. I think the other thing that I would say is, when I first heard that I was the process person, when I heard it as loudest from Darlene and from Bev. Right around the same time in that lecture when Darlene said it to me, Bev walked past and just put her hand on my shoulder and actually did so to punctuate a point, which was, "You're the process person, Alex." And I was so thrown aback because I was the people person in my head. And so I struggled with that since I heard that. And so I'm thinking about that now. I mean, clearly we are large, we contain magnitudes. We are all the three, and we are all whole. And it's just, I think it's an interesting thing for me to further reflect on, that the perception is such that I am the process person, and that inside I attempt to be the people person. So what I've started is diary, is a diary to try and kind of think through those things and try and answer why that's the case. See how that goes. I'll probably have questions for you. That's what I got.
Are you able to give us a time check-in to see where we're at so far?
Yeah, I know we're over 15 minutes because they gave me a notice. So maybe we can wrap it up.
Bye, Bev. Thanks for the opportunity to reflect.
Thanks, Bev. See you.